All right, so we've got a stack of entertainment news here. Remakes, sequels causing a stir, even a glimpse into, well, fandom. Should be interesting.
It really is fascinating, how these things all connect. Classic stories, how about those modern anxieties we all have, and then the world of fandom. We're going to see how these are all shaping entertainment today.
First up, get those old VHS tapes ready. The Running Man is getting a remake. Edgar Wright is directing.
Edgar Wright, really? Huh. He usually does, more comedic stuff.
Right. And with Glen Powell as the lead, people are definitely talking about this one.
It's not just like a random action movie, though. It's based on, a Stephen King novel. And King's work, it often reflects, I think, what we're afraid of as a society. And this one feels relevant today. Imagine those in charge using, like, violent game shows to control everyone. Sounds kind of familiar.
Especially with, like, how obsessed we are with reality TV. It's almost like King, like, predicted the future, except our gladiators, they're fighting for screen time, not survival. Well, most of them anyway. And speaking of a great cast, Katy O'Brien is joining this one, too.
Oh, well, Brian's fantastic. Yeah, she's been in some great stuff lately. Sci-fi, action. She's got the chops for this. It'll be really interesting to see her in this dystopian world.
Yeah.
But let's talk box office numbers. Joker, Folie, Deux had a surprisingly quiet opening weekend.
Way lower than the first Joker, which is interesting because this sequel went for it, It's a musical, bends genres, not your typical, like, comic book movie at all.
Yeah, the reaction to this Joker movie, it really shows the issue in Hollywood. How do you balance, artistic change with, like, what the fans want? I mean, you're a fan. You probably have strong opinions about this, right?
Yeah.
Especially when a movie you love gets a sequel. That's, like, completely different. It's risky for studios.
Trying to make the old fans happy, but also get new people interested. And of course, they don't want it to bomb.
Exactly. It'll be really interesting to see how Joker, Folie, Deux does over time. Will it be one of those that, like, finds its audience later? Or will it just fade away? Who knows? Speaking of anticipated projects, we got to talk about Lanterns. This HBO series, they're going for a dark and gritty feel, more true detective than, like, a typical superhero thing.
And casting Kyle Chandler as Hal Jordan, that's fantastic.
Oh, for sure. But you know what everyone's talking about. Who's playing Jon Stewart? Sit down to Aaron Pierre and Stephen James. Both are incredible actors. They have the talent, the presence to play such an iconic character.
Casting for these comic book adaptations is always a big deal. Fans are, like, super invested, and social media gives them a voice, that's for sure. Which brings us to, well, toxic fandom. We found some really disturbing stuff online, like harassment directed at actors, creators. It's really sad to see, honestly, especially when it's about things like, race or gender, things that have nothing to do with how someone acts.
Right. And it makes you wonder, is this just, a small group being loud? Or is there something bigger going on in fandom culture?
That's a tough question, and there are no easy answers. Some studios are trying to protect their actors, though. They're even doing things like social media boot camps. Can you imagine having to, like, train for online hate as part of your job?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but for some actors, being in these big franchises, it's just part of the job now.
It really makes you think, like, where's that line between, like, being a passionate fan and just being, like, downright mean? And how do these studios, how do they find that balance, between creative freedom, but also not having a total meltdown online?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Some studios, they're trying to, get ahead of it. They're involving fans earlier with these things called super fan focus groups.
Okay, so break that down for me. Super fan focus groups, what are those? And do they even work?
So basically, they get these, diehard fans, ones that know everything on, like, the comics, the books, whatever. And they get their feedback early on, like on script changes, casting, all that.
So instead of just, like, reacting to the final movie or show, the fans get a say.
Exactly. Studios can see how the fans feel early, maybe make some changes, avoid those total PR nightmares.
Interesting strategy. But, like, what happens when, those super fans, what if they don't like what the director wants to do? Or what if it changes the story too much?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Yeah.
It's about finding that balance.
Yeah.
Between giving the fans what they want, but also making sure the story is good.
Yeah.
I mean, no one wants to watch the exact same thing just redone, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes the best moments in movies and TV, they're the ones that surprise us, the ones that take risks.
Right. It's like that line from Jurassic Park. Your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they didn't stop to think if they should.
Exactly. You can't please everyone. And if you try to, then everything just becomes, like, boring and bland.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the weird stuff, the unexpected things that make a movie or show great.
You got to trust the people making it, right? Trust them to tell the best story they can, even if it's different from, like, the original. Even if it makes the fans, think a little.
For sure. But hey,
Yeah.
let's not forget about the fun stuff, right? It seems like Liam Neeson coming back as Detective Frank Drebin for that Naked Gun reboot, they've hit a bit of a snag.
Yeah. Even the best detectives, they have scheduling conflicts, I guess. Don't worry, the movie's still happening. Just push back a bit. August 2025.
Let's hope they've got enough blue paint, for those classic slapstick moments.
And if you're looking for something, the whole family can enjoy, the Smurfs are back, but this time, they're singing. A full-blown musical.
Rihanna, James Corden, Nick Offerman, Natasha Lyonne, Sandra Oh, and Kurt Russell. What a cast. This is either going to be amazing or a total disaster, honestly. I'm here for both.
July 2025, it's going to be a battle of the reboots. But hey, if musicals aren't your thing, we got some horror, too. Dakota Fanning is starring in Vicious, coming out February 2025.
And if her other roles tell us anything, we're in for something, intense, a little creepy even.
And on a more serious note, September 5th, this drama about the Munich Olympics in '72 starring Peter Sarsgaard, that's getting a limited release in November.
It's a good reminder, sometimes the most powerful stories, they're based on, real life. It's good to remember to try to understand these stories. They can be hard to hear, but they give us a look into, these huge moments in history and how they still affect us.
It's about, honoring the past, but also, starting a conversation about today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough thing, finding that balance. You want to honor what happened, but you also want to make a movie people want to watch.
Right. And it shows how powerful stories are. They can take you somewhere else completely, make you feel something real, make you think differently.
Exactly. Entertainment, it can be, entertaining obviously, but it can also make you think about stuff.
Speaking of thinking,
Yeah.
before we finish up this deep dive, I've been thinking about something. The power dynamic, between the studios and the fans. We talked about it a little before, but it just feels, I don't know, relevant.
Tell me more. What's on your mind?
Well, with social media and everything, all this instant feedback, are studios playing it too safe now? Are they so worried about getting blasted online that they won't make anything, truly different?
It's a good point. Are we just going to get sequel after sequel, reboot after reboot, stuff that's made for the algorithms but doesn't have any heart?
That's the thing, right? And if that happens, then what happens to movies and TV? It's something to think about, especially now when it seems like everything is about online trends, what the fans are saying online.
It's almost are we going to reach a point where the fans are writing the movie, or is there still room for directors, for writers to surprise us, challenge us a bit?
It's a good question, because at the end of the day, the best stories, the ones we remember, they're usually the ones that weren't afraid to be different, to try something new. They trusted that the audience would, come along for the ride.
So what are we supposed to do?
I think both sides need to be open to new things.
Yeah.
Be willing to step outside your comfort zone a bit. And remember, sometimes the best stuff is, unexpected,
Love it. Well said. And on that note, I think it's time for us to come up for air out of this ocean of entertainment news.
Yes. But before we go, I want to hear from you. You're listening to this. What do you think? Are studios playing it too safe? Is there anything coming out that you think, really breaks the mold? Let us know. And until next time, keep exploring.
For more entertainment news, subscribe to The Hollywood Reposter.